Hello, happy Friday the 20th of November, the last Friday in November before Thanksgiving in 2020. I am your host, Rutherford. It is now time for your status chat where we look at, where's my numbers? Well, we look at the week's numbers, and we're going to talk about the rumors and the talk we're hearing just recently about impact tax. And we're going to talk about taxes right after this. Dale Delbert's Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If you're currently unrepresented and would like to know how to compare up to 3 properties side by side, room by room, then go over to my new YouTube channel, subscribe while you're there, watch the demo. Afterwards, get with me and we'll set up your exclusive account today. Now, we got that done with. Let's talk about taxes, because that's always such a pleasant conversation to have, isn't it? Taxes, okay. Now, whether you call it a fee or a tax, however you call it, if the government's taking money away from you and giving it to someone else itself or someone else, that's a tax. Anytime the government takes something from you, they're the only ones who can call it a tax. If somebody else takes something from you without your permission, we call that theft. But we're not going to discuss that. We're just going to talk about what we're hearing rumors of, that even past, like say, Murfreesboro just had a tax increase pretty good. Davidson County had a huge tax increase just recently, in the middle of this COVID, and they don't seem to care. I haven't seen any real budging from that. People complained, and then right after they didn't get quite enough signatures, someone up there smiled like a cat eating a canary that they didn't take his play money away. Now, there are legitimate uses of taxpayer money. The problem is, it's a lot like governments act a lot like an irresponsible parent or spouse or child. They are always too happy to buy the new pair of shoes, the chrome wheels for the truck, the new hunting this, or spend it out eating out and that kind of stuff. And then suddenly, when there's not enough money to make the budget, the children can have shoes. It's all about the children. You just really need to give us some more money for the greater good because I don't have enough money to operate with. Well, we've just gone through essentially an entire year where a lot of people had to tighten their belt. I don't see the government as any different. But we look at taxes, and taxes come in many forms. One of the newest that's being talked about is, first, I don't hear it being talked about as a replacement tax or for fairness or anything like that whatsoever, but I'm hearing it discussed as more money. It wants more money. The government wants more money, and that's a hungry beast that you can never give it enough. It just wants more money, more money, more money. And the problem with cutting a tax that exists is somebody's buddies were already getting that money, okay? Or constituent, or however you want to put it. Somebody's already getting all that money, and they probably want some more money too. So, like in the past, a lot of states, when they push, a lottery, they'll push it for education, because who can say no to the children, right? Who can say no to the children? Don't you want to be a good human being and take care of the children? So what happens is they push this new revenue source because it's the children. It's all for the children. And how, again, you're just mean and evil if you don't go for the children. But what ended up happening is, even if we get an amendment that makes sure that 100% of the revenue generated from, say, a lottery goes to education, what normally happens? Well, as soon as we start to bring funding up for that noble cause, we start taking the other money that was already budgeted for the children and start giving it to other things that people don't want to pay for, whether it be parks or dog parks or greenways or bicycle shares, any of these other things that perhaps a very vocal, highly motivated group of people want, but that the majority won't. If the majority wanted it, would get it, right? And there wouldn't be anything nefarious going on. But what ends up happening is firemen, police, the children, education, these are the type of things that pull on our heartstrings, and so they become a necessity while they spend all the other money. We're not going to talk about any of that either, because that's inappropriate for this forum. But what is a impact fee? Well, it's just another tax. Somebody's got to pay it. And instantly you'll hear developers jump on the bandwagon and say, no, this is terrible, it'll make owning a house impossible, and raises the cost of a house. And that's not really true, because it can't raise the price of a house that hasn't been built if we have any control over the inputs. And we do have control over the inputs, don't we? We have control over the inputs. Maybe nobody likes Formica and fiberglass tubs and roll vinyl and a cheaper grade of carpeting and maybe not having crown molding and chair rail behind. But there are ways to reduce the cost of a house. Some of it is by building smaller houses. And if there's less house, there's less square foot, there's less material. So it's not really an adequate or accurate statement, say, to raise the cost of the house. Now, it may raise the cost of development in an area. And so that's what they usually hit, because they want to blame a lot of times the percentage of growth are newcomers, and it's easier to say that they're the ones who are, you know, causing all the traffic and everything else. So we want to pick a bad guy to blame it on. But the reality simply is if we have a huge development and we bring lots more, thousands of people into our area, if they are young and mobile, they'll often have children, and children have to have schools. And if they don't have that, they at least have a house, and the house needs fire protection, needs police protection. It raises the cost of everything. What often goes with that is stuff like parks, dog parks, greenways, all this other stuff. Well, the real reality is if we raise all of the average everybody's property tax, we're taking money away from the poor and the disabled and the elderly on fixed incomes and the people of this nature. We're making their taxes go up. For what? To help offset the building of a new school in maybe it's in a different area, different neighborhood, or to build a park, maybe it's in a different area, different neighborhood, and the other people are doing the benefiting from this. The same way, if we come in and we put a bunch of new houses in, even if they're affordable or not, they're going to cause some additional expenses that hadn't been there. Somebody's got to maybe open those water pipes up, dig up some streets and put some bigger water pipes. They got to add on some more officers, or maybe put into the fire hall. And everybody likes fire halls and police stations. They just don't necessarily want them in their neighborhood. So they're happy to have a new police station, whatever, as long as somebody else pays for it. So what an impact tax is they assess it on the developmental cost of new construction. Now that helps existing construction, because now it helps older homes look more attractive, especially if you're price-based. If they're not subject to that, they become more attractive as older homes, as that percentage of older homes. It may slow growth if they get them sufficiently high enough to encumber the developers by their cash flow being able to put down and help develop a new development, because the taxes have to first come from them before they pass it on to the home buyer. It may slow some of the growth, and nobody likes to talk about that. So the other issue with this tax is I'm not hearing anybody talk about it being a replacement tax for anything. Now, occasionally we'll hear about a replacement tax. They want, like when they wanted to raise the gas tax, they want to drop something else. But here's the thing. You have to be smart and realistic about your taxes. Government is not interested in fairness. That sounds cruel, but it's not. It's not interested in fairness. It's not interested in you personally or me personally or anybody else. It's interested in itself, keeping itself going. And if it's wanting to raise the taxes, it wants more money. So if they're going to say, well, we're going to raise this tax here, we're going to drop this down here, you can bet your bottom dollar that for all the public input and raising of cane and printing in papers, that quite honestly, if it wasn't going to give them more money, if government wasn't going to get more money out of the final deal, in other words, if it wasn't going to cost the people money, they wouldn't go through that noise and that aggravation, because a lot of these people had to be reelected. So the only way they're going to do this is if it nets them some more money. So think about if I were to come to you and say, look, I'm going to charge you another $10. But over here, I'm going to give your child $5. I'm still netting $5 to the good, right? And you're still paying $10. So you're still seeing a $10 fee being paid. And say I give $5 back to your kid, say you're still making $5. It's still coming out of your pocket. But what if you don't live in an area that has a new school and you have an old school and you're old or disabled, or you're struggling to get into that first home? Do you need that extra price tag going into it? It might be nice to jump into a brand new fresh home, but previously loved is always a good chance, is always a good thing to have, I think, for a lot of people. So it's an issue of where money is coming from, and I think it's unwise to believe that this has anything to do with fairness, really. It's just, we've raised the property tax, we didn't get enough pie here, we want some more. Let's go ahead and put a new tax in. Now let's talk about new taxes. You may not be from Rutherford County, but when I was a young lad, strapping and daring and handsome as I am today, but back in those days, they raised a $10 wheel tax. Now that was only temporary. That's very important. You understand, when the people voted for that new tax, it was only going to be temporary. Okay? Temporary. Temporary. Say that with me. Temporary. Temporary tax, wheel tax, $10 to build Riverdale and Oakland in Rutherford County. It was $10. They passed that in 1970. We still have the tax. In fact, I think it's more than $10. I'm not really sure. So the problem is, when you give... It's my observation, not associated with any business or this company, anything like that, that when you give government money, you never get it back. They tell you, maybe they not, a lot of times on these trade-offs, if you give us this brand new tax, we'll drop this other tax like maybe 2%. For how long? Because they eventually want that money back up too, because we don't have enough. Look at the gas tax. Remember the story when the gas tax came through. Oh, gas prices are down, so we need more money. We need more money, so let's raise the gas tax now. The problem was that is not sound logic, because the gas tax is not based on a percentage like a sales tax is. It's based per gallon. And when something is cheaper, anything, energy drinks, bacon, ham, steak, hamburger, organic vegetables, when the price is lower, we tend to buy more of it. And since the price is per unit, not per dollar, not percentage of sales, it was, I think, a little bit on the deceptive side to say that we need to raise tax now because the gas price is lower. What it is if the price is too high, the public who pays for it will balk. They'll complain. So it is the great time as far as government's concerned to get that tax in there, because the prices are down and you won't complain as much. But in reality, they're actually drawing more revenue now. Same way, if you have a city and you double the population and each person is paying the same flat rate of tax per person, nothing else changed, ceteris paribus, you add more people to it, they got more revenue. Now, how do they manage that revenue? That's the question. Anyway, that's enough on taxes. And it's just opinion. It's just opinion. Let's look at these numbers. From the week prior, we had 57.15 in the availables in the system. That was decreasing from the previous week. 42.19 in the under contract available. In other words, got a contract, but they're still showing. That was 42.19 unchanged. The ratio was 74%. Now, this week, we saw decreases in both of those numbers. 56.08 in the availables, 41.17 in the available under contract, and a ratio of 73%. So, hey, we got a little bit better on that. The ratio improved, but it was so close to ticking back over to 74%, there's really not much change in any of these numbers. So, mortgage rates and everything are still kind of hanging around where they have been. We got some new market uncertainty with all this, and you need to keep informed, keep watching my little shows. I probably ran a little bit long on this one because taxes were a big issue on the Facebook, people discussing back and forth, and of course the usual suspects were totally against it and want, that kind of thing. But eventually the reality is, yes, when something costs more, people tend to pass it on. That tends to raise your cost. But they're also, it's not like it's going to cheat. I think it's unfair to say it's going to cheat people out of their opportunity to get into a new home. If people can only afford to buy a $250,000 house, they're going to make a $250,000 house. If people can afford to pay $300,000, they're going to make a $300,000 house. If they can afford to pay $200,000, they're going to start making $200,000 houses. That's the way it is. It does you no good to make something that nobody will buy. So, yes, it does affect the final cost, but to suggest that we're going to have little people running around here with no shoes on because we passed an additional tax, that's probably not a fair statement. There are other things that if it does go through that they can make adjustments in. Maybe we don't like them, but it is possible that it can be done. So anyway, stay strong, stay happy. Life is good. It's a great time to buy. You know what to do. Call Dale to sell.